Hey cuties, I have something a little different for you today. I went on an excursion to see the City of Heroes Rebirth server, and I brought some friends with me. So shout out to the best of the worst for indulging my curiosity. But instead of just showing the gameplay with my, inane commentary, I just want to talk about my experience and thoughts, and just some of the general impressions from my teammates as well. This is not a recommend or don't recommend. This is just, what we experienced. I think this is specifically aimed towards people who are playing on Homecoming and maybe haven't tried these other private servers, I guess. I have wanted to check out these other servers that are out there, but due to a variety of factors, it was always just a maybe someday idea. Like the idea of just starting out from scratch and, not really knowing anyone was just kind of off-putting. But then I realized that I can bring my own team. So, yeah, that's kind of how this got started. My understanding of Rebirth is that they're trying to stick to a vision of City of Heroes that is maybe closer to the older live version of the game when it was being run by Paragon Studios, as opposed to Homecoming, which has made quite a number of changes in favor of convenience. I don't think either of these perspectives is right or wrong, they're just different. And I can appreciate both approaches. I'm not the sort of person who subscribes to these sort of Puritan ideas like suffering being a currency to purchase reward, but I can appreciate a desire to slow things down a bit and put more emphasis on the journey and the RPG part of it being an MMORPG. But anyways, we made some new characters in Rebirth, we began our adventures. I was kind of envisioning that maybe we would have like a Rebirth night, maybe a couple times a month, where we would like team up and level up as a group, kind of like a D&D night, I guess. Spoilers, I have some reservations about continuing with that idea, but I'll get into that. So, if you've played Homecoming, and honestly, if you're watching this video, you probably do, when you create your first character, one of the first things that will probably catch your attention is the new archetype, the Guardian, which is kind of like a, it's sort of, I guess, like a defender, but with like some armor and melee attacks, I guess. And you may, depending on which archetype you choose, you may notice some new power sets that you are not familiar with. My first character for this adventure was a radiation emission beam rifle defender, so nothing new, but I quickly came to regret that decision. But it was probably good in the sense that it ended up highlighting some potential issues for me that I might not have noticed had I gone with something else. Later I ended up rolling a water control kinetic assault dominator, so two power sets that we don't have on Homecoming, and I have to say I loved that character and I loved those sets. And if I keep playing on Rebirth, it's probably going to be just because of that Dominator. The next thing that you'll probably notice, and this is, I think, is my favorite thing aside from that Dominator, was the new and, to be honest, the wonderful changes and additions to the costume creator. They have done some amazing work with expanding the costume creator, adding some new options, adding options that should have been there for like a long time ago, and also just like some new pieces. Like, I love this crop hoodie. This is way too cute. and I adore it. There's also a new category of chess symbols that have a glowing texture, and some even actually have like some animation, and I think it's brilliant. That's an example of something that City of Heroes should have had a long time ago. And many of the older costume pieces that you may be familiar with have new options. So it's really worth diving into. I'm not going to drive myself crazy doing an exhaustive list of everything that's changed, but I just want to point out that there's some really cool stuff. There's like wings that attach underneath your arm. It's amazing. So great job to the Rebirth team on these costume options. They are truly wonderful. Once you get in the game, if you've played on Homecoming, you're probably going to notice that there is no smart vendor. Because if you're like me, that's probably one of the first things that you do. Go to the smart vendor, get the XP buff, and then you're off to the races. That is not a thing here. There's no double XP. There is a merit vendor, because earning merits is still a thing. But you will discover that you can't use them in the same way that you might have on Homecoming. For one thing, the merits are character locked. You can't send them around to your different characters. And for another thing, there doesn't appear to be anything that you can buy with merits that is similar to like the packs of converters that you might get on Homecoming to start earning some cash. At least not that I could see. And that kind of leads to a big concern that I have, and a concern that was shared by, I think, most everyone on my team. Oh, and also sending mail has a 15-second cooldown, which seems specifically aimed at making it inconvenient to move the resources that you've earned around to help your different characters, which sort of translates into the time and effort that you spend on one character is much more closely tied to that character. So we all gathered in Atlas, and we were having some fun with the dance emotes. I'm a big fan of the Wednesday dance. It's nice to have my own dance. So we go into DFB. I'm playing a rad defender, and I discover that Rebirth does not have persistent anchor toggles, which is a quality of life change that I may have taken for granted. I don't remember if it was Homecoming that changed it, or if it went all the way back to Paragon Studios, but it was a huge deal for me. You know, quickly I really got a taste of the past. I had forgotten what it's like to experience what I always thought of as the anchor dilemma. So on Homecoming, when you activate a targeted toggle like Radiation Infection or Darkest Night, that debuff stays on your target for a bit, even after the target is defeated. It just sort of persists in the world regardless of whether the target is alive or defeated. In the old days, the toggle would drop when the enemy was defeated, and that led to a dilemma. Who do I put my debuff on to keep that debuff up as long as possible? Do you put it on the boss, who has the largest health pool but will also be targeted by everyone? Or do you put it on like a lieutenant, who might get ignored for a little bit, but they might also just get wiped out by AoEs? And as someone who mained a rad defender for years on live, I can tell you this was one of my biggest complaints. I hated it. And here I got to experience that frustration all over again. One other pain point that I had forgotten about was weaponry draw. This gets into, the issue of pairing radiation with beam. I was playing with beam rifle, so I had to go through the weaponry draw animation every time after using a primary power, which was really often because I was hammering Radiant Aura so often to, try to keep people alive. And also, a lot of times I would have an enemy targeted and it would just be defeated before my character could even draw her beam rifle and complete the attack animation. And after a while, between my debuff toggles, dropping too early and being forced to waste so much time like drawing my weapon, I really began to regret this combination. It felt really ineffective, and I was not able to contribute much by what I consider to be just these old legacy gameplay problems. They're gameplay problems that Paragon should have addressed back when they had it, and I don't think that it's good to keep these things around just because that's how they've always been done. If something doesn't work well, get rid of it. But anyways, we ran DFB twice to get everyone to level 10. Then we went to see Positron, and that all went fine, mostly. But during this period, we ran into what I think was one of the biggest red flags for me, personally. During DFB, you would get these low-level single origin enhancements dropping, which, I was able to add to, my powers, and they're single origin, so it's, like 33% boost to a lot of your abilities. And that's great. However, once we got into Positron, I discovered that those SOs were not dropping, and I wasn't even getting like training origin enhancements. And once I noticed that, that led to a lot of questions among my group about how do you even go about slotting your character. One person in our group had leveled up another character on Rebirth, I think to like the mid-20s, and said that he still had empty slots. And another person had observed that the auction house was mostly empty, presumably to the lower population. And this really ignited some old grievances that I had with what I call Legacy City of Heroes. The old enhancement system before IOs, before even like enhancement diversification, led to all these unnecessary and unfun gameplay problems. You'd get slots every other level, but have nothing to put in them. Or, you'd just have like training origins whose bonuses are so small that their effect is imperceptible. And that led to the experience of only even-numbered levels being fun, because that's when you got new powers. And the odd levels were just a disappointment or a chore to get through. Every level should feel rewarding. At least that's my opinion. And I think it also created this unfortunate gameplay experience where as you level up, you become less powerful because you can't improve your abilities in any meaningful capacity. Your damage does not improve to match the enemy's growing health pools, which means that you have to attack more, and now you're spending more endurance per enemy, and pretty soon, like every single encounter, even with just a few minions, you have to stop to rest afterwards. A really bad experience. And not one that I wanted to experience again. There's a reason that people would rush to hit level 12 for dual origin, to get a little bit of relief, and then rush again to 22 so that they could get single origin. So by this point, I'm starting to consider that old gameplay experience with the knowledge that I won't be able to earn influence in the ways that I'm accustomed to, and also just with the general restrictions on merits and what's available to spend them on. And with such limited income, I'd only be slotting like random drops and maybe potentially finding myself in the 20s or 30s with slots that are still empty. And that, it's not a fun thought, and is really what gave me reservations about this whole endeavor, because as cool as some of the changes that Rebirth has made are, I don't know that I want to have that kind of like really agonizing experience of leveling up my character. I don't think it's an issue of convenience. I think it's an issue of barriers to gameplay. But I don't want to hammer too hard, because it's not all bad. I did go back eventually, and I started Dominator using water control and kinetic assault. And that character was really fun to play. Even though, she, like, I got her to level 10, just playing solo, and is now firmly within the territory of my attacks don't hit hard enough or often enough, and they cost too much endurance. So, like, every encounter is a slog. And unfortunately, it seems a decision was made to keep the old cooldown on rest for some reason. So you can't even use rest after every encounter. It may be on cooldown. So good luck with that. But these power sets for the Dominator, water control and kinetic assault, are unique to Rebirth. I also saw there was like wind control, and I was really enjoying them, especially water control. It has this AoE toggle that is amazing. Water control in general just does so much knock up and knock down. It's tremendously fun, even though it's probably a weird set to use for Dominator, because Domination doesn't really do anything for knock up or knock down. So getting Domination doesn't really benefit you as much. But I guess that could mean that you don't really need to worry about having perma-domination to get the most out of your power set, which is a nice thought. But anyways, it's a lot of fun. And kinetic assault also feels great. The mechanic that they gave to kinetic assault makes it so that as you attack, you are building a recharge buff, which seems like it would pair well with Domination. So having discovered that I really liked that character, I got the gang back to do another excursion on a Rebirth. And this time, we decided to go after the new revamped Synapse Task Force. I guess that the team had revamped Synapse in the same way that, like Positron was revamped to, make it shorter, and they may have split it up into 2 parts, I don't know. So we did that, and that was mostly fun. I say mostly, it's a handful of, new missions and maps that I've not seen before, so that was cool. The problem is that we got to the very end, where you fight the Clockwork King, and this last fight was wild. We wiped often and hard. I know I was frustrated. I don't know how the rest of my team felt, but I think it was not really enjoyed, this last encounter. I don't know how you're supposed to defeat this guy. At some point, I reached out in the help channel to just ask, if anyone was on, how do you defeat this? And someone had replied that, just go to the auction house and have everyone buy a bunch of red inspirations. Well, you don't have an auction house command. You have to go to the auction house to do that, and we are deep in Boomtown. So what we ended up doing was just have everyone buy red inspirations from the hospital, and then we went back and we gave it another try, and that did nothing. At no point did we even come close to defeating this thing. We couldn't even budge its health pool. I could understand wanting things to be a little harder, but this is a level 15 task force, guys. It should not be this difficult. Just my personal opinion. I was very, very frustrated. And, some people on my team even expressed the opinion that, maybe if we keep doing this, maybe we just avoid content that has been done by the Rebirth team, because they seem to have a different idea of what fun is. And I hate to say that, but that is really how I felt, and I know at least some people on my team felt. And it also kind of sucks, because that's the main reason that you want to play on, a different server aside from Homecoming is to do, the stuff that's new, to see what's new. And it kind of sucks to like just write off anything that's been done personally by that server's team because they just make things too hard. And look, I'm not a great player, but like I'm not new to this game. No one on my team is new to City of Heroes. Like we all know how to play this game. Yeah, we were stumped. And if anyone out there knows how you're supposed to defeat this guy, go ahead and tell me. We looked at videos. Like I said, I reached out in chat. Like, yeah, it was not happening, and we gave up after many, many wipes. And that was the last time that I think any of us played. And I think as I'm recording this now, which is long after the fact, that was well over a month ago. So it definitely left a bad taste in my mouth. Anyways, I think if I went on Discord and said, hey, let's get together, for another expedition, I'm sure, like, I would find people to go, but, yeah. It was frustrating. Like, I can't remember the last time that I failed a task force, like, outright, to where, like, there was no clear path to getting through that fight. So, that was my experience and our experience on this server. It's definitely, like, I don't think it's for everyone. And that's probably by design, like they clearly want to go in a different direction. And, some people are really going to be into that. If you're looking for if you're looking for more of a challenge, maybe that's the way to go. Again, I don't want to get into, like, do I recommend or, don't recommend. Like I said at the beginning, like, it's a different way of doing things. It's not right or wrong. So do I go back and keep playing? I honestly really do want to level up that Dominator. I would really love to see how that character plays at a high level with enhancement sets. Whether or not I have the patience to actually do that, I don't know. None of us are getting any younger. And, the older I get, the less time that I have, the less patience that I have to do that kind of grind. I don't have the kind of time that I had when I was a teenager. I think, if nothing else, it's worth checking out. I guess that's as far as I'll go, like, for a recommendation. Like, it's definitely worth checking out. The experience may not be for everyone, but, like, it is fun. See these new costume pieces and the new archetype and the new power sets that they have. I am left almost feeling kind of sad that, feeling like this may not be the server for me, but also, like, I really want to bring this Dominator with me back to Homecoming, because I really love the power sets, so yeah, I guess you just can't have it all, right?